All right, let's take a look at the review of test 2.2. Within this test, we're going to be looking at graphing in slope-intercept form, graphing horizontal and vertical lines, graphing in standard form, and then finally, we're going to be looking at transformations of graphs. Let's start with that slope-intercept form. That's the one that starts with y equals. And then we normally put y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, that's the number with the x, and then b is the y-intercept, that's the number without the x. So if we're graphing something like 3x minus 1, notice it starts with y equals, so this is slope-intercept form. You start from -1 on the y-axis, and we're trying to do a slope of 3. Now, we really want this to be a fraction, because when we have something with rise over run, we know the top number is the rise, and the bottom number is the run. So if it's not a fraction, you make it a fraction by putting it over 1, and then you can actually start counting out. Up 1, 2, 3, and across 1. And if you click here, the technology will actually draw the line for you. But by hand, you can count out additional squares if you want to and plot from there. Once again, starts with y equals. So the number without the x is the y-intercept, which is 5 this time. Once again, we have a slope that is not a fraction. So we make it a fraction by putting it over 1. And we should be thinking immediately about the fact that this -2x is going to be a negative slope. So this is going to be going downwards, as you can see on here. So we go down 2 and across 1, down 2 and across 1, and so on. And we can join this up. Y equals x minus 4. Now, the number, as it starts with y equals, and without the x is the y-intercept again, so -4. And when we see x here, we've got to remember that doesn't mean 0x, as there's no number there. It means it's 1x. 1, of course, is not a fraction, so we also have to put it over 1 again. Up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, and so on. Now, this is also a good one to remind you, you can always check your answers on the Desmos calculator as well. So the objective says that you have to be able to graph lines with and without technology. This is a good one to use with technology because we can look at the x-intercept and we can look at the y-intercept and we can make sure that we have the same ones on our picture. Now, that doesn't always work though. So if I was to do this one here, this -2x plus 5, I can at least check if my picture looks accurate, but I wouldn't be able to graph the whole thing. I can certainly graph 5 on the y-intercept, but you'll notice here that the x-intercept is a decimal, and I can't click decimals as I'm plotting points. I have to use whole squares. So I'm using the technology. I would not be allowed to click this point. I would have to click this point. So I would always check on Desmos first. If there are whole numbers for x-intercepts and y-intercepts, I would plot those 2 points. And if there's not, then you should go back to the original method as well. Let's move on to number 4. This one, not much here, so this can sometimes look confusing. As it starts with y equals, this is slope-intercept form. As there's nothing at the end here, that means that the y-intercept is 0, and that's where we start from here. Just like the last instance, when we see x, we know that that's 1x, and in this case, it's going to be -1. To make it into a fraction, once again, we put it over 1, and then we can count out down 1, right 1, and so on. Down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. And on ones like this that are a little bit confusing, you definitely will want to check this just to make sure that your line looks like my line. Goes through 0, that looks pretty good. And I might be able to check out individual points by clicking on the line, kind of like I did with an earlier exercise. So 3, -3 should be one of the points on the line. And you can indeed see it also goes through 3, -3 on this point as well. Your turn. You might want to pause the video and try some of these. I'm just going to work through if you just want to watch. So -1/3 x plus 3. It says drag the black dot to the y-intercept, so that would be the number without the x. And then as this is a fraction, I can just do the counting straight away. So from the y-intercept, I go down 1 and then across 3. And you can see that I have this answer correct. 2x minus 10, so start from -10 on the y-axis. And as it's not a fraction this time, I would want to put the slope over 1. So 2 over 1 means I go up 2, and then I go right 1. Y equals -3x. There's nothing at the end here, so I know that that means that the y-intercept is 0. And then as I'm doing the slope, as it's just a single number, I would want to put this over 1. So I will go down 3, and then across 1. Remembering, you can check all of these in Desmos as well if you're not sure. -x plus 3, so we'll start from 3 on the y-axis. And this is the one we're going to be careful. There's no number here, so it's 1, and -1 specifically. So I'm going to go down 1, and then to make it into that fraction, we have to go right 1, and then we can check for that one as well. Y equals x, so x plus 0, there's nothing on the end here. So that's going to be a slope of 0. And, y-intercept of 0, I should say. The slope, once again, as it says x, it's going to be 1. So go up 1, and then to make it into that fraction, put it over 1. And y equals x is really important graph. We talk about that one a lot in transformations of functions, so it's called that parent function. So it's really important that you recognize that one quickly and are able to draw it quickly as well. There are answers contained within the Desmos activity, so you could always look at those. As I just talked through all of them, we will move on to graphing horizontal and vertical lines. So this is where we're really thinking about Hooy and Vux. If we only see one letter, so not just starting with y equals, but just no x's for this one, then we know this will be a horizontal line. And if we see a single letter, which is x, we know we're going to be drawing a vertical line from these two words, Hooy and Vux. So let's take a look at those two. So y equals -2, single letter. So I know that this is one of those ones. As the y is contained within Hooy, I draw a horizontal line going through -2 on the y-axis like this, and I'm done. This is definitely one we should not get wrong because we can easily check it by typing it into Desmos, and you can see that my picture matches, and you can see it has the same intercept as well. All right, next one. X equals 3. So as there's only one letter again, I know this is Hooy or Vux, and this time it's Vux. V is a vertical line, and as you can see, I drew a vertical line going through 3. It only takes literally a couple of seconds to check. So, whoops, well, it would help if I could type in the right. Oh, no, I did type in right. I'm sorry. It goes through 3 on the x-axis, and so does this. So we definitely have that question correct. Your turn. Plot 2 more points to graph x equals 3. Perhaps I should pick a different number for this, and I will change this after the video because that's literally the question that we just did. It will be VUX, so a vertical line going through here. The line won't draw for me because it's an undefined slope, and Desmos doesn't like undefined slopes. Plot 2 points for y equals 2. So I know this is a horizontal line going through 2 on the y-axis. Done. Check on Desmos again if you're not sure. Which one is this? Well, this looks like a horizontal line, so I'm thinking of Hooy, H-O-Y. So this is y equals, goes through 4 on the y-axis. You can check. I promise it's correct. And same for this one here. This is a vertical line, so I'm thinking about VUX, and it goes through 1 on the x-axis, meaning this is x equals 1. We went through all the answers, so I'm just going to keep on going. Standard form to slope intercept form. You are also asked to graph things like this as well. Now, we can rearrange this. So take away 2x from both sides. Remember, you can't do 8 take away 2x. It's not 6x. It's not 6. They're not like terms. So 8 minus 2x is literally just 8 minus 2x. 4y means I'm times it by 4. So dividing each term by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. -2 over 4 is -1/2. And the advantage of doing this is you now have it in slope intercept form. So if I want to graph this, the number without the x is the y-intercept, 2. And if I'm graphing that, that's the number, the slope is the number with the x, -1/2. I would go down 1, and then I would go right 2. The other good reason for doing this question is as well, if they ask you what the slope is, you can now see that it's -1/2. You cannot tell the slope from this point here, and it's definitely not 2. I know people just remember often that it's just the number in front of the x. That's only if it starts with y equals. That's why the answer for the slope would be -1/2. Of course, for questions like this, I would strongly recommend that you type this into Desmos first, just so you can see what the intercepts are. If they're whole numbers, you are good to go. If it's not, you would have to do it like this and graph as we showed in the section. And I just cancelled for literally no reason at all. So let's see if I can figure out where we're up to. Here we go. You can also do this by x and y intercepts, but we didn't personally do this in class, so I'm going to move on for this one. Graph the line equation 2x plus 3y equals 12. You should always check in Desmos first, just in case. So for this one here, 2x plus 3y equals 12. Goes through 4 on the y-axis and 6 on the x-axis. So I should just be able to match those points like that. If you want to practice rearranging, what you'll notice is, well, you can see the y-intercept is 4 straight away. And this one actually goes down 2 and across 3. If you thought it went down 4 and across 6, you're also correct. But -4 over 6 is also, by clicking on the fraction button, -2/3. So the equation of this line is -2/3 x plus 4. You can check your method if you wanted to at this point. Plot 2x plus 4y equals -4. I would be just checking straight away. 2x plus 4y equals -4. And once again, I think this is going to be whole numbers. Yes, it is. So I would want to be plotting -2 on the x-axis, and I would want to plot -1 on the y-axis. And when it works nicely, you should always take the easier option of the two. But make sure you know how to rearrange just in case you need to. If you do want to see those rearrangements, you can see that I did them here, and you can check through those in your own time. Last section is on transformations of graphs. The black line represents the graph f of x equals x. Remember, f just means a function, or really you can replace it with y. So this is really y equals x. And there's that parent function that I talked about earlier. It goes through 0, slope of 1, kind of a really simple straight line. Drag the 2 points to show the graph which is 4 times as steep and also shifted down 2 units. So let's do the shifted down part first. So instead of starting at 0, I want to move this down 2 places. And as we know, the slope of this is 1 because it's 1x. If I'm going to make it 4 times as steep, that means I want a slope of 4, which means I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And then don't forget to make it into a fraction by going over 1. And you can see that this is a self-checking exercise, and that would be the correct answer. When we're doing questions like this, the example I gave in class was I drew this little table here. Last year, students kind of really struggled to visualize this question. So by writing out the key information in this table and by putting the arrows here as well, this really helps students. So I would recommend doing this. The slope was 1 because it was 1x. And as there's no number at the end here, that means the y-intercept is 0. This one here for g of x, it says 2/3 x. So let's put 2/3. Remember, we use m for slope because it's like mountains. And 8 is the y-intercept here. And then we can start looking at the questions. So we're looking, is this shifted up or down? So that's the y-intercept. So I'm looking here. If I see the word steepness, I know that I'm looking for slope. So if I go from 0 to 8, you can see that I'm adding on 8, which means I'm going up 8. Now, the reason also it's helpful to do this table is some people are doing this the wrong way around as well. They saw the 8, and then they thought about the 0 up here, and then they went back the opposite way and said subtract 8, which is obviously going to be down 8. So I think it's a good way. If you can draw this table like this, I think it really helps you to answer those questions. Now, this is the same table, but this time it's talking about, is it more steep, less steep, or the same slope as? So let's have a look. This time we're looking here. And you can see that 2/3 is less than 1. And as that's a smaller number, that means that it is less steep. Now, there is literally nothing to stop you from actually typing this into Desmos as well. There's the line y equals x. Let me just move across to the side here. And if we type in y equals g of x, just means also like y equals 2/3 x plus 8. I think you can see visually that this line is not as steep as what this line is. In fact, you can see this line starting to catch this line up a little bit as well. So once again, if you can type something into Desmos, I would. Sometimes the visual will help you to figure out what the answer is. Now, there is one for you to try. You can pause the video or you can just carry on listening. So we have the first numbers already filled in. 2x minus 3 is going to be 2, and the intercept is going to be -3. And we're doing the up-down thing first of all, so that's your y-intercept. So to get from 0 to -3, that means you would go down 3 squares. And if you look at an axis, I think that would be clear. Same one. The next one's talking about steepness. So I'm going from 1 to 2. As 2 is bigger than 1, that means that it is more steep, and you could easily check your answer by typing it in like I did earlier. Number 11, if the slope of y equals -8x minus 5 is changed to 5, how does the graph of the line change? So here's -8x, but I'm going to change the slope from not -8, I'm going to change it into 5. So you can see that this is a negative slope, and you can also see that this is a positive slope. And for that reason, I can actually select the answer pretty quickly. You could, of course, type in -8x minus 5 and type in 5x minus 5 and take a look at the picture. That would also get you to that answer. A graph of line H is 1/3 as steep as y equals x. So instead of being a slope 1, we're going to have a slope of 1/3. Shifted up 4 units from y equals x. So we know y equals x goes through 0, and I got to move this up 4 places. So I wanted to go through 4, and that doesn't really help me much because every single one goes through 4. But then I want a slope of 1/3. Now that one's negative, so I can see it's not that one there. This one here looks like it goes up 1 and then across 3. So I'm going to go for this one here. This one definitely doesn't go up 1 and across 3. I can see that one. And this also doesn't go up 1 and then across 3 either. And therefore, I can pick out my answer for sure. All the answers were here. You can certainly look through them on the Desmos activity if you would like to ahead of time. That does it for this one. Good luck on that test, but just kind of make sure you're reading questions carefully, using your Desmos calculator whenever you can to check answers and to confirm that you're doing well. And that concludes this video.